guys, welcome back for episode number 98 of the weekly playback. So a couple things before we get started. The first is that you can see I don't have a microphone today, so I need to get a new one. So I did not do that before shooting this video. So I apologize if the sound quality of this video is pretty bad. I will hopefully get a new microphone before the next video. And the second thing is that I am not going to talk about obsession in this video. Now, I know I said I would, but I decided to save it for the 100th video because I thought it would be fun to discuss my all-time favorite game in my 100th weekly playback. So this is number 98, and then in the next video, 99, I will be discussing Inventors of the South Tigris, which I will have played by then. I'll be doing an unboxing in this video, though, for you guys. And then I already have plans. I have, it put in my calendar to play a 4-player game of that, so I'll be able to discuss a 4-player game of Inventors of the South Tigris in my 99th video. So I thought it would be fun to make my 100th weekly playback like a celebratory video in which I discuss my favorite game, and and of course do a giveaway. So I know maybe I've lost all credibility because I've been putting it off, but I think I have a good reason now. So anyway, so let's just get into the games I played. And again, I apologize for the audio in this video, but hopefully it will be better in the next video. Okay. So let's talk about Ostia. Ostia is a 2022 game for 1 to 4 players designed by Tatsuka Chow, and the art is done by Tatsuki Asano and Urabe Rosinante, and it's published by Uchi Bakoya Games, which I believe is a Japanese publisher. So this is a pretty cool game that has track movement and a Mancala style action going on in it. So I played a 3-player game of this last night, and so let's just talk about how it plays. And I will be posting up photos. So I'll be posting up a photo of the main board because it's pretty big, but I'll just show it to you once right now. But the main board looks like this, and you are all going to start with your small little boats in this section, and you'll be traveling along these white pathways, and you'll be getting to destination tiles. Along the way, you'll be picking up various rewards, and you'll be placing down buildings, and buildings will be going onto your own player boards. So each person is going to have their own player board on which the Mancala style actions are going to take place. So at the beginning of the game, each player is going to be dealt a card. So you'll start with your small boats, which are called corbitas. So you'll have a certain number of corbita ships. Each player will have 14 corbitas, and one will start on the main board, and then the rest will start on your player board. So the corbita ships look like these small ships. So you're going to have one in each sector in the sea. So here, 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 and here. And then additionally, starting with your player card, you'll determine where your extra 3 corbita ships will go. So each person is going to have a different configuration for where their extra 3 corbita ships will go. So each player starts with 2 corbita ships in 3 different sectors of the sea, but the sectors in which your 3 corbita ships begin in, of course, will vary depending on these initial placement cards. And then on your turn, basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to advance along the main board. You're trying to advance your little corbita ships to get to various destinations, and you're going to want to build buildings onto your own player board where you see areas where you can actually build the buildings, and you're going to want to try to improve the efficiency of your actions by building buildings strategically. And you're going to be trying to, there's some set collection going on in this game, so you're trying to collect various symbols throughout the game that will appear on the main board, and also in some cards that you'll be able to collect when you do a certain action. So let me just show you some of the tokens that I'm talking about. So these are discovery tiles, and you'll see these on certain locations throughout the board. So like, for example, here's one which shows a horse, which in this game is considered an exotic animal, which I think is really funny, whereas the lion is considered a wild animal. So like, for example, if you passed a certain location that had one of these tokens on it, you would pick it up and immediately you would collect the gold, and then you would hang on to this token because it's going to be used for set collection in the end. So you are trying to collect sets horses, lions, and noblemen and noblewomen. The noblemen and noblewomen appear at the bottom of these order cards. And order cards, I'll explain how you get them, but you'll see them on the bottom, and I'll explain what these cards do. So I'll be throwing up a picture to illustrate, but basically everyone is going to start the game with one building already placed in the initial sector, and you'll have your Corbita ships. And Moncala style, first you're going to decide which sector you want to pick up your ships from, and then you will produce before you actually drop off your ships one by one. So each sector, not all of them, but most of them have certain resources which they will produce. So the top sector will produce scrolls. This sector will produce wood. This sector produces wheat, this one produces stone, this one produces gold, this one does not produce anything. So let's suppose I had 3 ships in this section and I decided I wanted to activate this section. So first, because I have 3 ships there, I would collect 3 scrolls. Now, if I had a building placed over here that I had built previously, I would be able to collect an additional scroll. Or if I was activating this sector, I would be able to collect an additional wood because this building is part of both sectors. So again, buildings will make your actions more efficient. So again, let's suppose I had 3 ships here. I would collect 3 scrolls, which I would then place the cubes into this sector. So the resources you're collecting always stay in the sector in which you collected them. So that helps you to keep track of what the various cubes represent because they are just cubes. So I will show you. So the game comes with a really nice insert and then 2 of these boats in which you have your resource cubes. So the small ones represent 1 and the large ones represent 3 of a certain resource. And I'll talk about what those other resources are in a little minute. So you'll pick up your resources, put them in the sector, then you'll pick up your ships and one by one drop them off in the subsequent sectors, the adjacent sectors. So you'll drop 1 off here, 1 off here, 1 off here. Now this is where you're going to be ending. So again, that's where the Moncala action is, and then you will take the action of where you put down the last ship. So this action happens to be build. So each person has one of these tracks on which you're going to have your extra ships and your extra building construction tokens. So let me just show you what a construction token looks like. So this is a construction token. You will start the game with 1 construction token placed on an initial trading port, but you will want to build more and more throughout the game. The cost of building is indicated here. So in order to build on the main board, you need to have your ship at a trading port. So the initial ones are like this wheat colored. So there's going to be 4 initial ones on the board, and then there's going to be a bunch of non-initial trading ports. So you are going to want to build your buildings at the various trading ports, but in order to build, you of course need to have moved far along in order to build them. So if your Corbita, for example, is at a trading port and you haven't already built there because you cannot build at the same place twice, then if you landed with your last ship during your action in the building section, then you can build. So you can pay the required amount of stone. You always start from the bottom going up. So if this was the first one I was building, it would cost me 2 stone. I would place my construction token there, removing it from this board and placing it onto the main board, and then I would collect the building that was there. You have a bunch of different buildings. They're all different shapes. So that's just an aesthetic thing. The building itself, the shape doesn't determine what it does, because once you remove the building from the main board, you can then place it onto any empty building slot on your own player board. And that will determine which upgraded action you will get. So some of them will offer a discount. So for example, if you placed a building here, it would offer you a discount of 1 stone going forward anytime you build. So you would decide where you place the building, which you have just collected from the main board after you have performed the construction action. So that is how the main board, this player board works. You're always going to determine which sector you're going to pick up your ships from. First, collect the resources depending on the number of ships you have in that sector, then drop them off Moncala style 1 by 1 in the subsequent adjacent sectors, and then you will take the action of the last sector that you ended on. And yeah, that's basically your actions for the game. So let's go through the actions. If your last ship ends on the first sector up here, that is the movement action. In order to move, you are going to be spending scrolls. So you are going to be moving your Corbita ship on the main board to get from location to location and hopefully reach the destination tile at the very end. So in order to move, you have to spend scrolls. The first movement would be free, which it costs 0. And then after that, you will see the number of scrolls it would cost you to move that number of spaces. You can split up movement between Corbita ships. So if I paid for 4 movement and I had 2 Corbita ships on the main board, I could move 1 Corbita ship 2 spaces and another Corbita ship 2 spaces if I wanted to. So you can split them up. This action is shipbuilding. Now this is a little bit different. So on this board, you are going to have alternating between Corbita ships and the bigger ships, which are called Ponta ships. So the Ponta ship looks like this, and you are going to have 3 of them. So each person has 3 Ponta ships on their board, and they're going to have a certain number of small Corbita ships. Now, if you build a Corbita ship, and I believe the very bottom one is a Corbita, if you build a Corbita ship, you just simply choose which sector on your player board you want to place that Corbita ship in. You cannot build a Ponta ship unless the Corbita ship on the main board, which you have active, is past the coastal line. So on the main board, there is a dotted line, and your Corbita ship must be past that dotted line before you can bring out a new one, right? So I'll just show you the dotted line so you know where I'm talking about. So you'll see here that there is a dotted line. So your initial Corbita ship needs to be past this dotted line, and your initial Corbita ship always starts in this location. No, sorry, this location, this empty box. And then you'll travel along one of the solid white pathways in order to get to a destination tile, which are going to be placed in those spaces at the end. And you can only have 1 Corbita ship per destination tile. So you always have to choose a new path with a new Corbita ship. Now, the reason that you can only build a Ponta ship if your initial if your Corbita ship is past the coastal line is because these Ponta ships will bump a Corbita ship from your own player board onto the starting space of the main board. And then this one, when it is in your player board in the sea, it will count as 2 small Corbita ships. Now, in terms of picking it up and dropping it off, it doesn't mean that you'll jump over 2 spaces. No. So for example, if this was one of the 3 ships I had there, I'm still going to drop 1 off here, 1 off here, and 1 off here. What this means is that you'll get to collect 2 resources for this though. So let's suppose I had this here with 2 Corbita ships. I would then be able to collect 2 wrong section. That doesn't give any resources. So let's suppose I had it here with 2 Corbita ships. I would be able to collect 2 scrolls for this, and then 1 scroll each for my Corbita ships, and then I would pick them up and drop them off one by one. So again, it only counts as a 1 space movement on the board when you're dropping them off, but will give you 2 resources. And again, a building might give you an additional resource when you're collecting. So you cannot build the Ponta ship unless the Corbita ship on the main board is past the coastal line, because this is going to bump a Corbita ship from your sea onto the main board into the starting location. So, but you can build more than 1 ship at a time if you have the resources. So if I had enough wood and I saw, because these will cost wood in order to build, and the cost increases as you go along. If I had enough wood to build a Corbita and a Ponta, and the Corbita I had on the main board was past the coastal line, then I could build both. The first Corbita I build would just simply go on my board, then the Ponta I build would bump off a Corbita from my own board onto the main board. So you can build more than once in an action if you have the resources, and you can do the same for construction. If you have the resources, you can build more than 1 building. And I'll go into a little bit more about building in a little bit. So that is the shipbuilding action. The next action we have here is the amphora action. So there are these amphora tokens which you are trying to collect, which will get you points at the end of the game. So if you land on this action, then you will be able to purchase these order cards. There's always going to be 4 face-up cards, and you need to pay wheat in order to get this card. And then they will give you the set collection noblemen and noblewomen at the bottom. So for example, this card, if I wanted to purchase this, I would pay 5 wheat, I would collect 1 amphora token, I would add this to my tableau, and I would immediately get 2 scrolls. Optionally, you can also pay the additional resources indicated, and if you do, you would get to collect another amphora. That is not required, that is optional. So the smaller resources listed are always optional, but you will get some kind of a benefit when you get these in addition to the amphoras, which will of course give you endgame points. And I will talk about points at the end of the explanation. So that is the order action. And if you had built a building there, you would have a reduced cost of 1 wheat, which is nice. The next action here is the building action, the construction action. So again, your ship needs to be at a trading port, or it needs to have passed a trading port. So my only one gripe with this game is that I think it's not thematic to be allowed to build at a certain location that you have passed with your Corbita ship, but this game does allow you to do that. So on the main board, if you have passed a certain trading port, and you are now at another trading port and you are taking the build action, you can build at trading ports that you have previously passed and place your construction token there. So that is the build action. And why would you want to build? So some of these will give you immediate bonuses. So let me see if I can find an immediate one. Okay, I can't find an immediate one, but some of them will give you trading actions. So the next spot we're going to discuss is trading, and so I'll go into detail. But for example, if you built if you constructed a trading port tile like this, it has the trading symbol on it, so you would be able to activate this during the trading action. And of course, you will get points for building, and you'll get points for constructing ships as well. So these icons will be giving you points at the end of the game. So that is another reason you want to build. And then if you manage to reach this section, you will be able to increase your prestige, and I'll talk about prestige in a little bit. So the next section is trading. So if you land here, you get gold. So gold is the resource indicated here. If you land here, that's the action you take. But if you pick up your boats from here and drop them off, then you get gold. So similarly for these spaces. So again, if you pick up your boats, if you select this section to pick up your boats from, you would collect wood. If you picked up your boats from this section, you would collect wheat. If you pick up your boats from this section, you would collect stone. If you pick up your boats and drop them off one by one, you would collect gold. But if your last boat lands here, then you take the trading action. So the trading action allows you to, again, if you've previously built somewhere, you can then activate that tile if you have a construction token there. So for example, this one would allow me to convert 2 gold into 3 wheat, which is more lucrative than the just general trading that you're allowed to do at any time, which is 3 gold for any 1 resource. But if you had built here, you can convert 2 gold into 3 wheat. So it is more lucrative, but you can do this a maximum of 4 times. So some of these will have limits on them, but some of them won't. So for example, I had one which allowed me to spend 4 gold to convert them into prestige, and I was able to do that in 1 turn 3 times, which was very beneficial for me. So that is very beneficial. So, that's what trading is. And additionally, trading will let you pick up an honor card if you have met the requirements. So there are 5 honor cards in this game, which will give you 12 points at the end of the game if you've achieved them. So for example, this one says you have to have uncovered 4 ship spaces on your building board. So everyone starts with 1 ship showing and 1 construction showing, and then you need to uncover the rest in order to get symbols. So if you had 4 ships showing on your board and you were doing the trading action, you could spend 4 gold to pick up this card, which is now worth 12 points for you at the end of the game. These are limited, there's only 5 of them, and again, you need to complete what is listed on this card before you can purchase this during a trading action. So during trading, you will be able to activate any trading ports on which you've built and pick up honor cards if you've met their requirements. And finally, if you drop off a ship here, this location has no resource. The only thing you can collect is if you build a building here, you'll be able to advance one on the prestige track. And again, I'll talk about that in a minute. But if you manage to land your ship here, you will get to take any one of these 4 actions listed. So it's all of the other actions except for trading. So you will be allowed to either move, build a ship, build a building, or do the order action in which you get those amphora tokens and cards for the set collection. So you will be able to do any one of those actions. Then additionally, after you have landed there, you then pick up the ship and you can then move it and then take the actions of where you land, the action of where you land. So let's suppose there were already 3 ships here when you landed with your ship, and you took any of those 4 actions you wanted, then you would pick up your 3 ships that are now there and then drop them off. 1, 2, 3. So then you also get to do the order action. So that can be really beneficial for getting 2 actions in 1 turn if you really need to do that. That is the way to get 2 actions in 1 turn, is by landing here and then picking up your boats and then dropping them off again, which is what you do when you land in that section. And then, as discussed, a free action you can do at any time is to convert 3 gold into any 1 resource. Gold, again, is valuable because gold is how you will purchase these honor cards, which you will need to get 12 points, which is very beneficial. So again, just to recap, scrolls you spend in order to move, and the move action is here. So your last ship would need to be dropped here in order to do the move action. This is the ship build action. You will be spending wood to build ships. This is the order action. You will be spending wheat in order to pick up order cards and get amphora tokens. This is the construction action, where you will build buildings and you need to spend stone. And construction is what will allow you to have trading actions available to you if you do the trading action, and it will also, of course, get you points at the end of the game. This is the trading action, where you will be allowed to activate your trading ports where you've built and be allowed to get those honor cards. And then finally, if you land here, you can take any of these 4 actions. So that is the gist of the game. So now let's talk a little bit about scoring. So I'm gonna just throw it up on the main board, but first let me talk about this prestige track. So on this main board, you see this prestige track here. So anytime you get a prestige token, you will move up your prestige token up on the leftmost side. And that location will determine how many points you get for the symbols, the construction symbols, the shipbuilding symbols, and the amphora tokens you have. So the higher up you are on the prestige track, the more points you will get at the end of the game for your shipbuildings, icons, your construction icons, and your amphora tokens that you have collected. So let me just talk a little bit about game end triggers. So the game end triggers are when someone has reached the 12th square of the reward track, which I just showed you. So the very top of the prestige track, which I guess is actually called the reward track. If someone has 3 or more Corbita tokens on the destination tiles, and I'll show the destination tiles in a bit and go into a little bit more detail about that. If all Corbita and Ponta tokens have been removed from any player's shipbuilding track, if all construction discs have been removed from any player's construction track, or all amphora tokens are taken from the common supply. The common supply contains 7 amphora tokens per player. So in my 3-player game, we had 21 tokens total. So if all of those had been depleted, that would have triggered the game end. And then depending on who triggered game end, you may or may not have one more turn, and then you will go to final scoring calculations. But let me just talk a little bit about the destination tiles. So at the end of each track, you're going to have these destination tiles. The first person to reach there would go to the top, and then any subsequent player would go on the bottom half, which is not as lucrative, of course. And they offer different things. So for example, this one would allow you to multiply your construction points by 3 and so on. Or this, yeah. So there's like, it would actually add an additional 3 points per construction symbol. This one you would want to do during the game because this will increase you 3 spaces on the reward or prestige track, as I've been calling it. So that one you want to try to do during the game, the one that you can advance on the prestige track. So again, you want to go up on the prestige track because the higher up you are, the more points you are going to get for all of your symbols. So at the end of the game, you are going to collect points for your building icons and ship icons, as we've discussed, the amphora tokens. And again, you're going to look at how far along you are on the track to determine how many points you get. You're going to collect points for your yeah, so there are certain port tiles that if you landed there, they would give you additional tokens. So for example, if you landed here and you had built a building here, then at the end of the game, the moon symbol indicates end of game. You would count this as 2 more amphora tokens that you have. So in addition to those shown on the discovery tiles you own, which again are these small tiles that you would have picked up along the way, if you have placed a construction disc on a trading port tile with an end of game effect icon, that icon is also counted. So these would also count for your points. So you would count up how many amphoras you have if you built here, or in certain situations, if you built, like for example here, this would give you 2 more building icons. So you would look at everything you've built and see how many points you have. You're going to get points for your amphora tokens depending again how far along you are on the reward track. Then sets of icons. So for each set of 4 different icons, which is 1 lion, 1 horse, 1 nobleman, and 1 noblewoman, you will gain 12 points. And then you're also going to see if your destination tiles, have anything that is end of game. So none of these do. They just have symbols that allow you to count towards the set collection. I don't see any right now that have moon symbols on them. So. And then honor cards, the honor cards that you were able to get during trading action, you will get 12 points each if you collected those. And then whoever has the most points will win. So I really enjoyed this game. It, can seem a little bit daunting at first. You're like, you see this one main big board with, tracks for you to go along, so paths for you to move along, and then you see your own small board. But then once you go through all the actions and you realize it's just really a Moncala style game, and then that determines which action you can take on the main board, essentially, it's super easy then. It's a really easy game to learn. So once you learn what all the actions are and how they trigger and how you get resources, and you want to try to get a little bit of a good engine going with the buildings you build and so on, it's super easy and really enjoyable. So the only thing that I thought was a little bit off in this game was the fact that you can construct these on ports that you have already passed, which to me thematically doesn't make sense, right? Because like if you've already left a city, how can you then construct on the city that you have already left? Now we discussed this in the game that we played, and we see why that's allowed, because it may allow you to it kind of speeds up the game a little bit, because if you weren't allowed to do that, then you really have to think thoroughly, and you would be slowed down a bit, because you would be like, okay, I could move, but then I would pass this port, and if I don't build on this port, then I won't get this trading port's ability later on during the trading action. But I think that would have been a good thing, right? So I think it would have been nice to only allow people to build on trading ports that they're stopped at, because it would really make you think more critically about which trading ports abilities you want to be able to activate. So if you don't build on every single trading port, you have to be more selective about where you are building, which is going to make the game a little bit more strategic. Yes, it'll make it a little bit longer, but if you go into the game with the mindset that it's longer because of that, then it's fine, right? You just would have to increase the amount of time that it takes to play this on the box. So instead of it saying 100 to 120 minutes, you could say, okay, this is going to be a 3-hour game, right? So you would just need to go into it knowing that it's going to be a bit longer. But with the way that it is set up, where you can build on ports that your ship has already actually passed, then, it speeds up the game, and, it just does not feel as thematic to me, but it's fine. So out of the 3 of us, one of us actually enjoyed the fact, so one player enjoyed the fact that you could build on ports that you have already passed. But again, that makes it kind of more of a race game than a strategic game in my mind. But despite that, I super enjoyed this game. I thought it was a lot of fun. So I would definitely play this again. Now, I did receive the expansion. This is a review copy that I received to play and give my thoughts on and talk about, but I did also get the expansion with it, which I have not yet played with. So I would like to play with the expansion. So I'll just show you the expansion just so you can see what that is like. And hopefully by the next video, I'll be able to talk about the expansion, because I'm hoping I'll get to play this again with the expansion. So it comes with a Pirates. Now, this is currently on Kickstarter. So Pirates is currently on Kickstarter, and I do need to play it, but I'll just show you like some of the components from it and hopefully talk about it next time. So this comes with these additional boards. And then it comes with like some pirate ships and treasure tokens. So again, this is all prototype version, so this will be, you know, maybe different in the actual game. It comes with these Roman city tiles. So a bunch of Roman city tiles and so on. But you know what, I'm not gonna go through all of this right now. You can go to the Kickstarter page and check this out to see what this expansion adds. And I hope that in my next video, I will be able to talk about this game with the expansion. So yeah, so I'm hoping I'll get to play with the expansion so that I can talk about this next time. But yeah, Ostia was a super fun game. And if you enjoy games like Five Tribes and you also enjoy point-to-point movement games, I really think that you will love Ostia. So definitely check it out. It's on Kickstarter right now. And again, this was a review copy that I received from the publisher in order to play and give my thoughts on. So yeah, so that is Ostia. So let's move on. Another game I played recently is Candy Hunters. This is a 2024 game for 2 to 4 players, designed by Marek Chodan and Michal Gri, and it's published by Smart Flamingo Games. Now, this is currently on GameFound. So this is a review copy that I actually received while I was at Essen in October of 2023. Now, bear in mind that this is a prototype copy, and in fact, my copy did not contain all of the components. So the pictures I'm going to be showing will show certain meeples that are not in this game because I had to improvise. So this game was supposed to contain a certain number of player tokens per player, and my copy did not contain any player tokens. So there were supposed to be 4 sets of 5 player tokens each. So I used weird, like fantastical animal meeples from a different game for me and the player that I played this game with. And my copy was also supposed to contain 10 scare tokens, which it did not. It only contained 4. So these are the scare tokens, these jack-o'-lanterns. So we only had 4, and it did contain 4 ghosts though. So the ghosts were important. So luckily it did contain the ghosts. So this is a pattern building tile placement game. So you're going to have these haunted houses of different colors. So for example, here's a blue one, here's a yellow one, and so on. There's green and orange as well. So there's, yeah, so I believe those are all the colors. There's blue, green, orange, yeah, I think that's it, and yellow. So yeah, blue, green, orange, and yellow. Those are all the house colors. So, and on the back of them, they show candy. So for example, the yellows are all gonna have the same candy. The orange are all going to have the same candy. The blue will all have the same candy on the back of them, and the green will all have the same candy on the back of them. So you are going to have a starting configuration, which kind of looks like a windmill. And then you are going to, on your turn, place a building tile from one of the stacks of buildings, and you get to see which colors are available. So all the buildings will be in their own stacks of their own color. You will place a building tile, then you have to move a ghost, and then you will score patterns if you have any patterns to score, and then you will place a player token. So when you place a building token tile, you have to place it adjacent to an existing building tile. So you can't place a kitty corner. So I could not place like this. It would have to go adjacent to an already existing tile. And then you are going to move a ghost. So you will move a ghost from a tile to another. So when you move a ghost, you can move it up to 2 times, and if it moves into a tile with a player token, you move that token to any adjacent empty building tile, including the one that the ghost just came from. And if you can't move a ghost, if you want to push a player token, but there's nowhere to push that player token to, it has to go onto the tile that you just came from then, obviously. If you move onto a tile with another ghost, then that ghost can go to any adjacent tile, and that might trigger another pushing and so on. Okay, so, and then you're going to score patterns if you are able to. So each person is going to have different pattern cards in their hand, and if you meet the pattern, then you get to score it. So you'll place down the pattern card face down into your scoring pile, but before you do that, you will get to collect a tile. Now, if you have a tile that in your pattern that you just scored, which has a player token on it of yours, then you will get to collect a tile. So let's see. So you will take one, no, sorry, before you do that, if there's a ghost on your pattern, you will take 1 scare token for each ghost present on a tile of your pattern that you just scored. And then you will take building tiles included in the pattern that had your player token on it. So let's suppose I scored this and I had a player token on the orange, then I would get to pick up an orange tile and add it to my supply. This is not going to be used to place down in the game. This is going to be used for end of game scoring. So tiles you collect when you score do not get used to place down throughout the game. You just put them off to your supply, off to the side, because they're going to be used for the candy on the back. So you want to try to place your player tokens strategically so that hopefully, and you want to move ghosts strategically so that you will bump your player tokens into the tiles that you are going to hopefully score with these pattern cards, because that is how you will collect more candy. And the objective of this game is to collect the most candy to try to get the most points. And then finally, after you have scored and you've taken a tile, if you were allowed, then you place your next player token. So each person has 5 player tokens, so the game is going to end after the last player has placed their last player token. Then you will go to scoring. So again, if you scored a pattern that had a ghost on it, you would have gotten a scare token, and those are negative points. So at the end of the game, you're going to get 2 points for any pattern card in your collection that you scored. You'll get 2 points for the first candy of any given color. So let's suppose I had 2 oranges. This one would be worth 2 points, and then any subsequent candy of that color would be worth 1 point. And then you will get -1 point for any scare tokens in your collection, and then whoever has the most points will win. So it's a very basic little strategic tile placement game, pattern scoring game. Yeah, so it was very simple, very quick, because I played a 2-player game of this, and again, the game ends when both players have placed all 5 of their player tokens, and then you go to scoring. So super quick, super easy. It can be a little bit difficult if you get pattern cards that all are of this configuration. So in the beginning, all my pattern cards were of the diagonal configuration, which made it more difficult to score because I would have to use up more turns to get tiles in this position to score them. So obviously it's going to be easier if you have something like this. So, you know, there is a bit of luck involved because when we were playing, my opponent was getting all of the good pattern cards, which made it easier for him to score, and I was getting all the diagonals, which made it difficult for me to score. And of course, I believe he won in the end, though I cannot remember now. But I did have actually more candy, so maybe I won. Maybe because I think he did not score as much with the candy and stuff. So actually, let me just double check, because now I don't remember. So yeah, let me just check the play. So yeah, actually, no, he won. Okay, so he won with 15 points and I had 13 points. So it's still a very close game. So yeah, so this is just a very like small little tile placement game with some little strategic movement going on with the tokens and stuff. So if you're looking for a Halloween themed game, I believe that the campaign says that this will deliver before Halloween. So again, this was a review copy I picked up at Essen so that I could play it and then give a little bit of a overview of it and then my thoughts on it. So yeah, I think it's a cute little game. So if it sounds like something you're interested in, then definitely check out the Game Found campaign. So let's move on. Let's talk about the Battle of Versailles. This is a 2024 game for 2 players designed by Eloi Pujadas and Ferran Renalius. And the art is done by Malin Company, and it's published by Salt and Pepper Games. Now, this is a 2-player kind of take that and tug of war game. So one person is going to be representing France and one person is going to be representing the United States. You are going to have this one board that will have Versailles tiles on it. So on this board, you will see a bunch of spaces for various tiles. 2 of them will start face up and the rest will be face down. And I'll show you examples of the tiles. This is the scoring track, which can be a little bit confusing because you're supposed to imagine that it's a straight line and that your track is on one side of the 0 and the other person's track is on the other side of the 0. The rule book does not explain it very well, but once you imagine it in that way, then you'll be able to score better throughout the game. And then you're going to have various slots here where you might be able to put celebrity cards underneath, and I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So there's going to be these tiles, and the way I'll, throw up a picture, but you're going to, let's suppose I'm here and you're my opponent. This board is going to be vertical like that between us, and then perpendicular to this board is going to be the runway, these runway tiles. And then we're going to be placing cards on our side of the runway or underneath this board if they're celebrities. So you're going to have a long runway composed of these tiles. And you will see, so there's, they're always going to start face up where the FR is stated. So they start a certain way, and you will see that some of them have the lights on and some have the lights off. And so that basically shows who has kind of the better action in terms of who has their lights on or who has their lights off. So there will be the opportunity to flip these tiles or even rotate them so that, one person you can rotate certain tiles, not all of them. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So in this game, you are going to be moving along this model on the runway, and when she stops at a certain tile, you take the action that is indicated on there. However, France gets more actions than the US. So throughout the game, France will get 5 actions and the US will get 3 actions. And what are the various actions? So the actions could be to play a card. You might play a card, a dress card, on your side of the runway, and dress cards will help you to get points. Because different designers need different dress symbols in order to score. So the model is going to be moving along until she gets to the designer. And then at the end of the runway, you will be scoring your designer cards. So at the start of each round, each person is going to have a designer that will be revealed. So for example, let me show you the designers. Where are you? The designers have these scissor symbols. Yeah. So each person has 5 designers, and there are 5 rounds. So not necessarily 5 rounds. The game can end way before 5 rounds, which it did. So these are designer cards. So in each new round, you will reveal a new designer, and this one shows for every 2 of those symbols, and every 2 of those symbols, you'll get this bonus, and then you'll get to do the action indicated, and you'll also get to score points. So these are prestige points, and prestige points and victory points are kind of different. And, we'll get into all of that in a little bit. So when you're moving the model along the runway, you'll be doing different actions. So one of the actions is you can play a dress card, and you'll just place it down, and that's that. You can play an event card. An event card might affect the other player. You might get to remove a dress from their side of the runway or something like that. If you feel like you need more cards, you can always discard a card from your hand instead of playing it, and then take the number of cards indicated on the bottom. Or sometimes you can play a card to the income tile face down, and that will be resolved once the model reaches the income tile. So some of these cards have a number of francs actually, I think all of them have francs on the bottom. So for example, this card, if you did not play it for the dress, but you played it face down in the income tile, then when it comes to scoring the income tile, you would reveal all the cards on each side of the income tile and see who has the highest income. There is no money to collect in this game. Instead, you will be scoring points for that. And again, we'll talk about that in the end. There is no automatically replenishing your hand. So you get to pick up cards on the first tile, when a new round starts, but otherwise, if you want to pick up cards, you will need to discard a card in order to draw cards, or you will need to play a celebrity to the Versailles board. And celebrities, so here's an example of a celebrity. So this is a celebrity that you could play onto the Versailles board. And when you play a celebrity on this board, you always place it on the empty slot that is closest to you, and you fill them up along in that way. So one of the winning conditions is that you have 7 celebrities in Versailles. So it could be that your opponent has celebrities here, but you are placing a celebrity, so you would get to remove theirs and theirs would get discarded. So anytime you place a celebrity, you get to do the action that is listed above there. Unless, I believe, you are simply kicking someone out, then you don't get to do the action that is listed there. So some of these will let you draw cards, some of them will let you get rid of someone's dress, and so on. So that is, essentially the game. So you're moving the model along the runway, performing the action on the tile indicated, and then you're going to get to different tiles, which will score. So you'll get to the designer tile. Once you hit the designer tile, you will score the designers. So let's talk about that. So when you get to the designer tile, you will see who has the, if you have the icons that your designer wanted. And if you do, then you get the bonuses that are listed underneath there. So that is what happens when you do that. And then again, when you get to the income action tile, which I believe comes after the designer tile, or is it before? I think it might be before. You're going to see who has the highest number of francs. And then they will get to take these Versailles tiles from the board. So, sorry, you don't get points, you get these Versailles tiles. So whoever has the highest number of francs will get to take a certain number of tiles from the board, which will have actions on them or certain symbols that you might need. So for example, this one has the flag of France on it, which I, as France, would definitely want. And some of them just have like symbols, so actions you can do and so on. So they're all different, but you can only pick up the face-up ones. So you will pick up the face-up tiles, and then you will turn over any face-down tiles which were orthogonally adjacent to the ones that you just picked up. So then those will be available for the next round's income action when they win. So whoever has the highest amount of income gets to choose 2 Versailles tiles, and if your opponent had at least half the income earned by the other player, then they can also choose 1 tile. But if they have less than half, they do not get to take any tiles. So that was what the income action does. It gets you these tiles. And then finally, there's the prestige action. So when the model reaches the prestige action tile, you will count up the number of prestige you have, which is stars that you see throughout your side of the runway. Or on your celebrities. So a lot of dresses have stars on them, celebrities have stars on them, and your designers have stars on them. Whoever has the most stars, you will take the difference, and that is the number of points that the winner gets. So like, let's suppose I, as France, had 10 stars and the US had 14 stars. The difference is 2, what did I say? Did I say 10? So if I had 10 stars and the US had 14 stars, the difference is 4 stars. So the US would get to score 4 victory points. And again, that is a tug of war. So you are going to be moving in a tug of war fashion. So, and it's one single thing that is moving. So again, you want to imagine that it's one long line with 0 in the center. So like, let's suppose that France was winning in terms of points, but then I won the prestige action. So I would be moving the points back on France's side and then hoping to loop around once I hit 0 and start advancing on my own side. Because the way that this board is set up, it's not one long single line. The way that they did it is you have 0 here, and you're just basically going to be looping around this way if you end up hitting 0. If at any point someone hits 15, which is the maximum you can get, then they would immediately win the game. So let's talk about end game triggers. So the game ends when one of the following conditions is met. So celebrities, if someone manages to fill all 7 spaces with their celebrities, they win the game immediately. And that applies to both the US and France. French pride, this applies to France only. If France manages to collect 15 or more French flags on the Versailles tiles, they immediately win the game. I imagine that that's going to be very difficult to do, because that means you need to win the income action every time and just focus on winning the income action and just getting those tiles. So that is very difficult. Dress qualities. This applies to the United States only. If the United States manages to display 6 different qualities in the same column of dresses, they win the game immediately. And wild card icons do not count towards that goal. So if they have dresses in the same column that display 6 different symbols like that the designers required, they would win immediately. So this is where the take that would be beneficial and come in, where you would want to try to remove dresses of your opponents. And then finally, prestige. This applies to both players. If someone reaches the end of the prestige track, they win the game immediately. If none of these have been met at the end of round 5, the player with the most prestige wins. and it says that the 0 space belongs to France because again, it's like a tug of war. So yeah, so that is the Battle of Versailles. So I late pledged this game. I got it from GameFound when they were doing late pledges, I believe. I had not originally backed it, but then I saw that the one of the designers of the game is Ferran Renalius, and I really liked a couple of his games, including 1902 Melier. So I decided to late pledge this and get it. And then, you know, there was a lot of rave reviews about this game. Now, I just, you know, I'll say that I only played this game one time, but the game ended pretty quickly. I believe it ended after the second round, if I remember correctly, because the US reached a lot of points. So, you know, I guess it's my fault. I didn't realize that it would be so easy for him to get that many points that quickly. And I didn't want to be too mean when I was playing. So, you know, that was my mistake. So there is a lot of take that, and you should not be afraid to do the take that in this game, because if you're France, you're not going to win otherwise if you don't start removing a lot of your opponent's dresses, which I should have been doing. So, you know, I should have been removing his dresses and trying to prevent him from getting to the end of the victory point track first. So yeah, so my opponent, the US won. And then we did a little bit of research. We went on to Board Game Geek and, you know, read some comments and reviews from other people. And it seems like, you know, it's pretty easy for the US to win quickly. If they start getting a lot of prestige points, yeah, they can win pretty easily. So I would be really curious to know, if you have this game and you've played it, how often you win as France. I definitely want it to be France because I thought France had the prettier cards. France's cards are pink and the US's cards are blue, but the pink cards are just so much prettier than the blue ones. And of course it's France, so who wouldn't want to be France? When they play a game, if your options are the France, why do I keep on saying the France? If your options are France and the United States. So yeah, so, you know, it's a good game, and I'm gonna keep it in my collection for now and hopefully play it a couple more times to see, you know, whether if we play a few more times, if we get to learn the game a little bit better, maybe it will feel a bit more balanced and last a bit longer than it did. So we shall see. So yeah, if that seems like something that you might be interested in, then check it out. So let's move on. Let's talk about Get On Board, Rome, Paris, and Rome. So this is a 2023 game for 1 to 5 players, designed by Sashi, and the art is done by Monsieur Z, and it's published by Yellow Games. So, I've played this twice now. I played it at a 2-player account and then a 3-player account, and I would like to play it solo as well. So at 2 and 3 players, you are playing with the Rome side of the board. You can only play with Paris if you are playing at 4 or 5 players. So this is Paris. As you can see, it's much bigger, and this is Rome. So at the top of the board, and I'll put up pictures, you're going to have some common objective cards here, and this is where the tickets will go, so that you see what ticket number comes up and what shape you can make on the board on your own player sheet. So this is a flip and write game, but you're also laying down tracks at the same time. So the various player colors in this game are this pretty light blue, yellow, this watermelon color, I think that's dark blue, and then green. So each person is going to have a player sheet, and your player sheet must look different from other players' player sheets, meaning that the symbols underneath the cards should be different. So before you begin playing, you're going to make sure that everyone has different symbols underneath that section. Then at the beginning of the game, you are going to get, if you're playing with the Rome side, a card randomly selected numbered between Metro Station 1 and 6, and that will be your starting point. So you are going to place your Metro marker on that starting point on the main board. So each person has a Metro marker, which you will then place onto that Metro Station on the main board. And then you are going to take all of the tickets and shuffle them. And then the first ticket that is revealed in a 2 or 3 player game will have a certain border color. So it will be bordered in either burgundy or yellow. So as you can see, burgundy or yellow. So depending on what the border is of the first ticket color, you are going to fill in that box down here. And I'll explain why you do that when we get to that section. So you are going to have an active player, and the active player will always have this token to indicate that they are the first player, sorry. the first player. So the first player is going to always reveal a ticket, and then they will get to place down their tracks first. And then everyone else will place down their tracks for the number that was revealed. So you will always just check off the number that was revealed, and then you must do one of the shapes that's below that number. So some numbers have two shapes below them, and some numbers have only one shape below them. So if there's two, then you get to choose what shape you want to do, but if there's one, you must do that shape. If you ever get to a situation where you cannot make a legal move because you cannot backtrack on your own tracks and you cannot go off of the board. So if there's a certain shape that you just cannot make, then you will need to fill in a circle here, and you can turn a turn into a straight line. And you can do that multiple times if you need to, and it will cost you negative points at the end of the game. So sometimes you have to do that. Like sometimes there's going to be a situation where you cannot make a legal move, so you have to take those negative points. Every person is going to have their own private objective. Your private objective will show you which stations or points on the board you are trying to reach to throughout the game. And common objectives will look something like this. So a common objective will be like the first person to get 5 lovers, or the first person to get 5 Taurus. And I'll talk a little bit, I'll get into the objectives and all of that when I get to that part of the game. So the first player is going to reveal the ticket number, and then they will get to place their tracks first, and then the next player will do theirs, and then the next player, and then the first player marker will move. So again, you have to do the shape that is listed. So you're trying to place down tracks so that you get different things throughout the game. Anytime you arrive at a metro station, you will circle the metro station here. At the end of the game, any circled metro stations that you did not use will be worth 2 points. How do you use them though? If you use them, you cross them off. So it has to be circled first for you to be able to cross it off. And then you can extend a shape that you are making by 1 line for each metro you cross off. So if you want to extend your line, you can do that by crossing off a metro that you had reached. But again, any circled ones that have not been crossed off will be worth 2 points at the end of the game. The grandmas you reach will just be worth points, so there's no special scoring with them. You'll just circle the grandmas and then get the corresponding points based on the number of grandmas that you have. The students, when you reach a student, you will circle the student. But students need cinemas in order to score. So at the end of the game, you will multiply the number of students you reached by the number of cinemas you reached, and that will be your score for students. Cinemas are harder to reach because they are kind of on the outsides of the board in Rome, so there's not many of them. So for example, there is a cinema down here, there's a cinema somewhere up here, and then I don't know where the other one is. So cinemas are harder to reach. Oh, there's a cinema up here. So yeah, so much harder to reach the cinemas for you to get those student points. Lovers. If you reach a light colored or dark colored lover, then you circle one of them. The race and gender does not matter. So you don't try to match them up. So if you get someone who is dark skinned and has a light background, you'll see that on the first row that you might not find the exact kind of lover that you need. So it's only the background color that matters. Don't worry about gender. So if you reach a light colored lover, you would circle one of the ones that has a light colored background. If you reach a dark colored background lover, then you circle those. Then if you reach a restaurant, you will score the line. So you want to try to avoid reaching restaurants until you have as many lovers circled as possible. If you get couples, so if you get one dark and one light colored one, that's a couple. So they will be worth 6 points if you reach a restaurant and score them. But let's suppose you have one single one here and one single one here. That's only going to be 4 points. And you have to score if you reach a restaurant. So you have to score your lovers if you reach a restaurant. So again, try to avoid reaching restaurants until you have at least 4, or if you can, 2 couples, which would be 12 points, which would be amazing. Let's suppose you reach a restaurant and you don't have any lovers circled, then you would not score anything. But let's suppose you scored this line and then you have just one lover circled here and you reach a restaurant again. That's a shame because now you have to cross out the entire line because you've scored it and you would have gotten only 2 points. So if you have just one thing circled but you reach the required destination building, you have to score that line and then cross up all the rest to show that it's been scored. But if I reached a restaurant and again, the next unscored line has nothing circled in it, then nothing would happen. Same goes with tourists. So these tourist guys, when you circle them, nothing happens by itself until you reach either the opera or the Colosseum. If you reach one of those, then you will score your tourists. So the more tourists you have, the more points you will get. If you have just one tourist, when you reach either the Colosseum or the opera, you will get only 2 points. And then you would have to check, like, cross off the rest of the tourists in that line, and that line would no longer be usable for you. So again, you want to try to avoid reaching the opera house or a Colosseum until you have as many tourists as you can get, because once a line is scored, you can't score that line again. If you reach a Colosseum or the opera house and you have no tourists circled in the next line, then nothing would happen. Common objectives we talked about. So the first person who completes a common objective on their turn would get 10 points, and then this would get flipped over, and then any subsequent player who completes that objective would instead get 6 points. So if you're the first one to get it, more points for you. The personal objective, if you reach just one of your destinations, you'll get 2 points. If you reach 2 of your destinations, you'll get 5 points. If you reach 3 of your destinations, you'll get 10 points. Now here, remember at the beginning, we filled in one of these depending on which card was flipped over. Anytime you place a track on the color that was filled in at the beginning of the game, you get to fill in one of these bubbles. And anytime you place a track on where another player had a track of theirs, you would get to fill in those bubbles. That's called making connections. It's basically having connections with other lines, and it will get you more points. So the more of these bubbles you fill in, the more points you can get. But as you can see, it's harder to advance. You need to fill up as many of these circles as you can get to get a significant number of points. And then finally, you would subtract any of these circles that you filled in order to change the shape in order to make a valid move, and then whoever has the most points will win. So it's just a cute little flip and write game. I really enjoy it. I've played it twice now. I think it's a lot of fun. I really had a lot of fun playing this at both 2 and 3 players, and I would definitely like to play it solo and see how the solo mode of this works. So hopefully I'll be able to report back on that in the next video. So yeah, and I would really like to play the Parasite, but again, that's 4 or 5 players. So yeah, I hope I'll get to play that side soon too, so that I can talk about that as well. So yeah, so if you enjoy flip and write games, highly recommend get on board. I think it's super adorable. So yeah, so let's move on. So let's talk about games that I'm backing. So I'm currently not backing anything. I was backing Flow, but then I canceled my pledge after I saw Alex from Board Game Co.'s video on it. So number one, I used to work for Fantasia Games as a social media manager. This was years ago now, a couple years ago. And then, you know, they got rid of me after the whole Palestine thing, and then some other stuff happened. So yeah, so they decided that, you know, they no longer wanted me as their social media manager person. So, but I had previously backed Endless Winter before I even got that position with my own money, and then I sold my pledge. So that was nice. So I was able to sell that pledge because then I no longer wanted it. And I'm glad because, you know, there's just so many games that come out that are so big and have so much going on and a lot of hype, and then you don't really hear about them as much anymore. Like now, how often do you see people talking about Endless Winter now that the hype has died down about it? So I feel like you don't see that being posted. You don't see the game being posted a lot, right? I feel like games that get posted a lot are games that are more evergreen, and, you know, so I'm not sure how evergreen of a game Endless Winter was. But anyway, so I ended up backing Flow just because the components and the art just looked absolutely stunning. But then I saw Alex's video and he said that this juice was not worth the squeeze. So the amount of effort it took him to learn the rules, set up the game, and all of that was not worth the like enjoyment and the puzzles that he got out of the game. So that was enough for me, you know, to put me off of the game. So I canceled my pledge, which is really good because, you know, it was a lot of money and I'm a completionist, and if I'm going to back something, I want to back it at the all-in level so that if I do decide to sell it, like I did with Endless Winter, it would be easy to sell. So, you know, of course, with Endless Winter, it was for other reasons that I decided to cancel my pledge. But in the end, I'm glad I did because, you know, I'm not sure how often a game that huge would have hit the table anyway. So yeah, so I canceled my pledge for Flow. So I'm currently not backing anything. But, you know, just to be clear, I probably will end up receiving production costs copies of Candy Hunters and Ostia, which I did discuss earlier in this game. So, you know, I received review copies of the prototypes for those. So yeah, so let's move on. I think that's it for games that I am backing or not backing. So let's unbox Inventors of the South Tigris. I am so excited for this game. So if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you know how much I love the first two games, and I especially love them because of the theme and how much the theme means to me. Like, I absolutely love the fact that there are these games that exist which basically highlight the contributions of Arabs and Muslims and the Middle East to the world, whether that's mathematics, architecture, science, astronomy, whatever. So, you know, it's really cool. Theology. So it's really cool to have games that highlight that part of the world. So I took off the plastic wrap, but I haven't unboxed anything. So I will go through. Unfortunately, I don't have an overhead camera to show you, but I will hold up everything and show you the inside of the box. So if you've watched my videos before, you know that his pre-production copies are absolutely outstanding. I mean, it's just basically a production copy. Like, even the back of the box has all the artwork and everything on it. The components are fantastic. So it just feels like a completely well done production copy. Like, you would think that it's a brand new game that's been fully published, that it's not like in the stages of, you know, being shown in videos. So each person will get a player board. I believe that looks like this. So there are a number of these player boards, of course. There is this main board, and it looks like they have a guild thing going on. So here, oh, okay, so the main board is long, so we're kind of looking at something like Wayfarers again, but it looks like this instead. So yeah, so that's really nice. So it's not like Scholars of the South Tigris, but yeah, it's got gills. And then here, I'll show you a quick look at the box inside. So you've got meeples in the same colors as all the previous games. So the light blue, the purple, the red, and the mustard, which I absolutely love these colors. And of course, I always play as purple. This one, you do have dice, but I do not believe the dice belong to any specific player. So you've got blue, mustard, black, and white, and there are more white dice than the other colors. And you've got tokens that match the dice colors. So I don't believe these tokens necessarily, or maybe players get tokens in certain colors. And then I'll show you the punch boards. So yeah, so here's one punch board. It looks like there's a bunch of these tiles. And from what I could recall, it looks like they go, I'll show you the underneath of the box. But yeah, it's just a bunch of those. And then I love that new board game smell. It smells so freaking good. Yeah, let me show you the back of the box because it shows you kind of a picture of what it looks like when it's set up. Oh, sorry, it's upside down. So yeah, you'll see that the tiles get placed underneath the main board. So I think you'll probably get to take actions on those tiles. Super excited to play this. So yeah, let me just open up some of the components and then I'll show you the cards. So let's just show you some of these. Okay. So yeah, so you have these influence tokens just like in the last few games. It looks like you have a tent. So there's a couple tents. And then it looks like I have a ship. Oh, this looks like a ship. Yes, that must be a ship. And then a couple little people. So you have a few workers in your own color. I believe 3 workers. So you have 3 workers, 4 tents, a bunch of influence tokens, 1 ship, and then I believe this is probably a point tracker. So those are the components for each player. And then I'll show you some of the cards. So yeah, I have plans already to play a 4-player game of this next weekend. And then I need to do my overview video for it. And of course, I'll discuss it in the weekly playback for that after that weekend. So yeah. So here are different cards. And, you know, so I don't know what's what because I haven't played, but there's only a couple of these cards and they look like that on the back. And then we have some cards with this guy. And I wonder if that's like an autonoma. Who really knows? So yeah, so that's that. And then we have what looks like a couple player aids. So I'll put those away. An end game scoring card, talks about what you score at the end. So you score guild majorities, royalties track, research tiles, craftspeople, workshop tiles, invention tiles, builder and publisher influence, built and published devices, and then silver and cards. And then finally, these look like the inventions. Oh, that is so freaking cool. Oh, this looks so cool. I love all these inventions. Oh. So yeah, so there's like no people in this game. So, you know, like typically when you see in Shem Phillips games, you have those people, those multi-use cards with the people. It looks like the only people are these ones. And again, I don't know what they do. So yeah. So yeah, so that is Inventors of the South Tigris, and I'm really looking forward to playing this. And it, you know, it's like so nice. Like I said, it's like a real production copy. It comes with all of these nice bags for you to rebag everything. So yeah, so you know, as part of my contract for covering games, as usual, I always have that I'm supposed to get a production copy of the game after it's produced, and then I always end up giving away the pre-production copy because it's so freaking nice to one of my Ko-fi subscribers. So one of my Ko-fi subscribers did end up getting my pre-production copy of Scholars, which again was basically like a production copy because it's so freaking nice. So yeah, so this is really nice and I'm super excited to play it. Oh, and let me just show you the score pad. So yeah, so that is that. So let's move on to the updates section. So updates. So I actually did end up posting a picture of the third cat colony in the last video to show what the new setup looked like, because remember, if you watch my last video, I had to kind of hurry through that video because I was going to meet someone who was going to help me redo the setup. So what we did is we took 2 large wooden pallets, which local stores provide to us when we ask them for them. So when they get their supplies, like their big boxes delivered to them, they are delivered on these wooden pallets, which are really great for cat colonies. So we try to elevate things with those wooden pallets. So we took 2 wooden pallets and we placed them near the big tree, like kind of behind the big tree. And then we placed the small shelters onto the pallets, so that elevates them, so that way when it snows it won't be as cold because they're elevated from the ground as well. And then the big shelter that I built, so for these colonies I always try to build at least 1 big shelter, because the big one, the big black one, it has like a little entranceway, and then when you enter there's another little entranceway into a bigger area where more than 1 cat can fit. So you can fit in a couple of cats in that big shelter, and of course I insulate all of them, and then the small ones can fit like 1 cat per shelter. So we had the small ones on the pallets and kind of all close together, so it looks like a little village, and then the big one against the pallet facing it, so they all would have their doors, their front doors to the pallets. And then we covered it so that partly, you know, it would be protected from the rain and stuff. And then one of the people who was helping, she created a makeshift feeding station. So now that I know that you can do that, I'm going to try to do that. So you basically take a big rubber storage container that has a lid, and you just cut big holes onto each side of it. So then you put the food bowls inside so that they're protected from water. But you need to weigh it down because those plastic storage containers are pretty light. So if it gets really windy, they can end up moving around a lot. So we weighed it down with some really big rocks and stuff. So yeah, and then I turned my makeshift shelter, which I had made very early on, into a water station so that it's covered and they can drink their water there. So yeah, so it was a really nice setup in the end. And, you know, I walked around with the woman from the TNR, and she had kind of looked at the tracks in the snow and figured out where the cats are. These are much more feral cats than at the other 2 colonies, where the cats actually know me and come up to me, and I've even been able to pet a cat at the other colonies. So these cats in the 3rd colony are much more, they're like feral, like properly feral cats. And so we found out where they've been kind of living and, you know, have been learning about their situation. Oh, and I'll actually post some pictures. So we put a camera into the feeding station to see which kinds of animals come. So luckily in this station, it's pretty amazing. There's like no other animals like raccoons or skunks or anything, because from the colony from which I adopted my cat, Zaytoon, I don't know if I ever showed you guys, but I posted it on Facebook and even Twitter, but I had taken a video of my little kitten Zaytoon following a skunk, because, you know, he's a tuxedo cat and skunks are black and white, and I had gone there one time, this was like last summer, and I had gone there at around like 6 or so p.m. and a skunk was making its way to the feeding station, and Zaytoon, my kitten, was following the skunk like as though it's his mom. So yeah, so that was super cute. So, but there's, you know, the camera did not pick up any skunks or raccoons or possums. Instead, it picked up some cats and a lot of cool birds. So yeah, so that was pretty fun to see the pictures from the camera. So, you know, we're gonna try and get the cats trapped so that we can spay and neuter them. But they are pretty feral. So when I go to this feeding station to feed the cats, this location, I never run into any cats. I've only seen cats while driving by at nighttime. I've not seen any cats during the day when I go there. So have yet to encounter any cats myself. But of course I encounter cats at the other colonies all the time. And it's really nice to see them out and about enjoying themselves. Yesterday there was actually a rooster harassing the cats at one. I got cut off because I received a phone call, and as you guys know, I shoot with my phone, so I can't even remember what I was talking about. I think I was talking about a rooster. So yeah, so there was a rooster harassing the cats at one of the colonies yesterday. He was just kind of like making a lot of rooster noises, and the cats were just running away scared. And there's a train track up near that rooster, near that colony rather, not the rooster, and eventually he headed towards that direction. I don't know where he came from or what he was doing there. That's the first time I've seen a rooster there. I've seen geese hanging around before. Like one time it looked like a bunch of geese were just congregating there and like up to no good. Though I love geese, I really love geese. But yeah, that was really funny to see a bunch of geese there one day. I was like, what are they up to? But you know, that's fine if geese want to come and eat food. I'm not sure that the cats would like it, but they didn't actually come where the food was, but they were hanging close by. So yeah, so I don't know what the rooster was doing, but the cats were all afraid of him, but eventually he left. So yeah, so otherwise, yeah, I don't know where I was going with all of this, but yeah, so again, thank you so much to people who have helped to make it possible to buy shelters and feed these cats. So thank you. So that is the update on cats. So now let's talk about Palestine. So when I was shooting the last video, I did not know at the time that there was someone who was going to, you know, take the most drastic action of protest that there is to take. So last weekend, U.S. Veteran self-immolated in front of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., which basically means he set himself on fire. Now, if you look at the media reporting for this event, it was really terrible. Like the media was saying, oh, we don't know why he did this. Like it says, man sets himself on fire in front of embassy, motives unclear. What do you mean the motives are unclear? He made it extremely clear why he was doing this, and it was to protest the genocide. You know, he live streamed the entire event. He posted in advance on Facebook about why he was doing this. He made a will in advance. He basically stated that he did not want to be complicit in the genocide. And as his body was on fire, I've seen unblurred videos of this. So I've seen it censored. I've seen the uncensored video of this happening, where he is on fire and screaming free Palestine as much as he can until he can no longer shout it. But until the moment he set himself on fire, while he was walking there, he explained why he was doing this. And, you know, it was to protest the genocide, and he did not want to be complicit in it. Now, what does that mean to be complicit? Well, it's, you know, there were reports kind of early on in the genocide that U.S. Troops had been spotted in Palestine. And apparently, you know, there's evidence that he had received information that yes, there is U.S. involvement, like actual involvement in this genocide, where troops, U.S. Army people are actually engaging in, you know, the acts of, you know, violence, genocide. And, you know, we're not just contributing funds, but, you know, we've been sending over people to fight. So yeah, so he didn't want to be complicit. And, you know, I think it's like the sacrifice he made was to show the importance of the message. Like a lot of people try to, invalidate his message have been saying that he suffered from mental health issues, that he's a veteran with PTSD. And, you know, a lot of people try to spin this into a mental health thing, the same way that they would, you know, anytime someone wants to take away from the real reason someone does something, they, you know, obviously jump straight to mental health. Oh, he had mental health problems and this and that. Yet if you look at when the Buddhist monk self-immolated back during the Vietnam War, you know, he was praised for his actions, and it really helped, you know, kind of turn the tide. It like changed things. People really woke up after that event. Like the last thing you can do, the greatest last thing that someone could do, and when I say great, I don't mean like it's a good thing, I mean great as in like really big thing. Like the biggest thing that someone could do to try to draw attention to what is happening is set themselves on fire. It's like, you know, and other people have been much more eloquent in explaining this than I have, and I follow some of those creators on Instagram. I'll probably just post some screenshots here so you can read what has been written about this act. But, you know, to say that he had mental health issues when he did not is to really try to take away from his message, to try to detract what he did and why he did it. And, you know, it was, of course, it's absolutely horrific. It's really, you know, it's hard to see someone going through that. And, you know, as many other pro-Palestinian people have said, you know, if people had known that he would make like the ultimate sacrifice for a message, a lot of people would have tried to stop him from doing that because of how incredibly painful, you know, it is. You know, and when we think about how painful it is, think about all the people in Palestine who are literally going through the same thing. Like when bombs fall on people, that is what's happening. They're basically being set on fire. They're being killed by extreme force and heat, and, you know, also chemical weapons that have been being used on Palestinians, white phosphorus, which is a war crime. Like, just think about what's happening to the Palestinian people, and it's absolutely horrific. And this person, Aaron Bushnell, put himself through that so that he could try to deliver a message. And he wanted the last thing he ever did to be super meaningful and deliver a very meaningful message. And, you know, so, you know, people like myself are very grateful to him for the ultimate sacrifice he made. Of course, we would wish that he would not have sacrificed himself, because it's clear that he truly cared, and maybe he could have made a difference in other ways, but, you know, for him this was the biggest thing that he felt he could do, so he did it. And I don't think that it's fair to take away from that by people trying to create lies about him, saying it's a mental health issue and all these other reasons, when, you know, he seemed very coherent, and, you know, everything he did up until then was pretty you know, he seemed very rational, and he seemed like he knew what he was doing and why he was doing it. So yeah, so, you know, so we all pro-Palestinian people feel like we, you know, we owe a great deal of gratitude to Aaron Bushnell for making this ultimate sacrifice to get this message across. What else has happened recently? There was a flour massacre. So, as you know, Palestinians have been being starved, and flour was finally being delivered. So people in Palestine have been trying to live off of animal feed. They've been trying to, because it's the last thing that they have available is animal feed. And so many people have been dying from forced starvation forced upon them by the Zionist Israeli government. So there was a flour delivery, and what happened during that delivery? Israel shot like all these people who were trying to get flour to feed their families, and now you have blood mixed in with the flour. And do you think that if anyone was able to get any flour, that at that point they would want to use it when over 100 people were killed during this massacre? Like, the ongoing genocide is just so horrific. It's just, yeah, I mean, there's just really there's just no words to describe how horrific it is. Like, I was at the grocery store the other day, and you know, I'm a single person. I don't have any nephews or nieces or anything like that. So I was at the grocery store and I heard a baby crying, and it just made me feel so awful, because it's not something I hear very often. Because, you know, if I'm in public and I hear a baby crying, like, that's probably the only time I'll hear a baby crying. Because again, with my age group, and I don't have any friends who have babies and stuff like that. And just hearing this baby cry in the grocery store was just so awful, because all I could do was think about all the babies who are dying of starvation or who have been made into orphans. And it was just really, really hard to hear this baby crying. And then thinking about how, you know, babies are just so freaking helpless. They're just the most innocent, you know, humans on the planet. Babies are innocent. They're just, you know, they don't have any prejudices. They don't have any ill will towards people. They're just so innocent and sweet. And just think about babies in Palestine who have, you know, lost everything, or who are dying of starvation, or the babies who were in the NICU centers who died from starvation and a lack of medical care. Like, doctors had to evacuate. There was no way to continue caring for these babies. There's like corpses of babies in these hospitals. It's just so incredibly sad. It's just really, really sad what is happening and has been happening now for 5 months. It's been 5 months. Like, it's just insane. It's just really insane, the state of the world. Yeah, and just to, you know, always bring it back to board gaming, despite these horrific events which happened recently. So the Aaron Bushnell sacrifice, and now this flower massacre, and all the big names in the industry are still dead silent. If you know, I guarantee if this was about Ukraine, they would be so vocal, but it's not about Ukraine. It's about Muslims and Arabs, and everyone is silent because they don't want to upset their Zionist publisher and designer friends. So yeah, so, you know, the industry is just filled with hypocrites and sellouts, and it's just really, really disgusting to me. I think it's just really disgusting. So yeah, so there is your update on Palestine. I do hope that you don't rely on just me for news. You know, I talk about it because it's important to me, and I, you know, want to keep on raising awareness. But I hope that you, as conscientious humans, continue to, you know, consume the news outside of my videos, and, you know, keep yourself informed about all the atrocities that happen in this world, and, you know, try to make a difference in whatever ways that you can, because I think that we all should do whatever we can to make a difference in the world and try to make it a better place. Like, this world is just a really crappy place to live in, I feel like. I know I'm really pessimistic, but I think I've said this before. I oftentimes just wish the world would end so all suffering could come to an end. And I know that's a really pessimistic way to look at everything, but, you know, I just think if the world ended, then all suffering would end. And like, how great would that be? Like, no more suffering. Yes, we would all cease to exist, but no one would be suffering anymore. There's just so much suffering on this planet, and it's just really, really hard to see sometimes. Yeah, which is why you do need to take time, you know, times to step away and just kind of recharge yourself. So, you know, I do still do things which I enjoy, like playing board games, and I can, you know, forget about all the human suffering for a few minutes, you know, like an hour or two when I'm playing board games. And then of course I might feel guilty about it, because I know while I'm playing board games, there are literally people dying and being starved to death and just going through the most horrific experiences. But the helpers, I guess, you know, is what we're called, or the people who try to raise awareness and do what we can, whether it's financially with donations, you know, which I do as well, or other things. Like, you know, we need to be able to recharge ourselves, because we would be no good. We would not be doing any good or be of any use if we just became super depressed. So it's important for people, the helpers, to stay recharged. And, you know, like, if I just thought about how sad I am about all the stray animals all the time, then I could just end up going into a great state of depression, and then I would be of no use to anyone. Like, if I couldn't get myself out of bed and I couldn't take care of all these cats that I take care of, then they wouldn't have the food that I'm feeding them. So I need to be able to recharge so that I can do whatever I'm able to do, whether it's for the cats or the Palestinians and so on. So it's important for people who are not, you know, who are blessed enough to not be suffering in those ways, to take care of themselves so that they can continue to be a voice and do whatever they can. So that's why I think it's important for me to keep on playing board games and making sure I take time for myself to do the things that I still enjoy. And then of course I can feel guilty about it afterwards. But you know, I'm blessed enough to be mentally healthy enough that I can still do these things and take care of myself and, you know, try to take care of others when I'm able to. So if you are in a state that you can do that as well, then I hope you will, because, you know, the world needs people like that. So anyway, so let's move on from this. So the question of the week this week is inspired by Ostia. I want to know, what is your favorite Mancala style board game? I think mine is 5 Tribes, but of course I haven't played a lot of Mancala style board games. I've of course played Mancala, and I've played 5 Tribes a number of times, and now Ostia, but those are the only ones I know of. Are there other board games that have that mechanism? And is there a way to make it thematic? Because, like, here's the thing, when you are playing Ostia, yes, it's pretty cool how you get to pick up these boats and then drop them off one by one, and then that dictates, you know, determines which action you get to take. But it's not truly like thematic. It's not like, you know, it's representative of the actions that you would be doing in real life when you think of like seafaring, and you think of like exploring different locations and building construction and stuff like that. Like, you know, the act of picking up boats and then dropping them off one by one, like that's not very like realistic, right? So I want to know, is there a Mancala style board game in which it also really ties into the theme really well? Because I can't think of something like that. Of course, I haven't played a lot of games like that. So again, I've only played 5 Tribes and now Ostia. So I would like to know what your favorite Mancala style board game is, and which one you think, you know, is the most thematic one as well. And until next week, so we are almost at 100, yay! So we're getting there. So that means I've been doing these videos for like almost 2 years, which is crazy. So yeah, so until next week, bye!